This is the Stubborn German Podcast. I am your host, Chris Ron. And sitting next to me is Kevin Oeste.
Hi there, ho there. We're doing role reversal.
Yeah, we are. And next to him is Mr. Jared Chasson.
Good afternoon.
Thank you both for being here. You're probably wondering why my scraggly voice is talking and not Mr. Oeste's voice of gold. That's because he lost his voice. Right. No kidding. This is, if you've clicked on this episode and you're listening right now, you have entered the Kevin episode.
Oh, boy. Now they're going to tune out.
Yeah, they might. No, they won't. Kevin's got some awesome stories, and I think one thing that I've been asked about more than anything about the podcast is, how do you know Kevin? Like, what's his deal? What? You know, Kevin seems like a really interesting dude.
Who's
they
that
say
guy?
They say the same thing about Jared too.
Yeah, right.
And yeah,
of course.
But I get it a lot about Kevin. It's like, you know what? It's time to do a Kevin episode, and let's find out. And it's kind of funny that I said last time we were recording, I said we should do a Kevin episode, and Kevin goes, I literally have that. I have a Kevin podcast. It's called the V8 Radio. So if you don't want to listen to any of this, you could go ahead and tune out right now and just catch all of
just go download
Kevin's
all the
life
back episodes.
Sure, right, yeah.
But we're going to do it in one concise, 45-minute bit here.
Nice. Well, I'm honored. I appreciate it.
But before we go any further...
Yes, we have a thing called the German Word of the Day.
Yes.
And because we are doing kind of a role reversal in this episode, I have come up with the German Word of the Day.
Nice.
And I'm pretty confident that both of you guys know what this is, but I think it's kind of centric to what this establishment here at the Stubborn German Brewing Company is all about.
Okay, let's hear it.
And maybe our audience doesn't know, so we'll share it. The word is Gemütlichkeit.
Gemütlichkeit. Why would you think I should know that?
Why would you know that, Kevin? Go ahead, Jared.
Gemütlichkeit. And it's related to the brewery or the atmosphere. Let's see. I'm going to say...
exposed brick walls? No.
Yeah.
On the nose.
I don't know this, but I'm going to say energetic.
Energetic.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to note that.
Gemütlichkeit. I am going to say it means a feeling of warmth and friendship.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely sure.
Is that your final answer?
I know the song.
There you go. All right. Well, we will find out later in the show.
Okay.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Right. So now this is where I start,
That's
right?
you.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, my
You're
bad.
on.
Okay, so Kevin.
We're quickly realizing why Kevin hosts the show instead of Chris.
Yeah, like very, very fast because I honestly I don't know what to say.
It looks easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. He makes it look really easy. Where do you start? So let's start at the beginning.
All right.
When you were a little boy, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Park Ridge, Illinois, which is a suburb that borders Chicago. Geographically, it's basically right between Chicago and O'Hare Airport.
Okay.
So I had a commercial jet going over my house every 30 seconds for my entire upbringing, landing at O'Hare.
Fun.
Yeah. And my dad was a police officer in Park Ridge. My mom worked in healthcare. And both my parents are from Chicago, and grandparents grew up in that area, and then the previous ancestry came from Germany.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Has anyone ever said you sound like you're from Chicago?
Well, you know, it's funny because it took
accent.
a long time to kind of dial that back.
Yeah.
Because the Chicago accent, it's a thing for sure. You know, you go over by there and you get a hot dog.
Over by there?
Yeah, that's right. You know, down the street at 95th and Ashland. And it's a good thing. You drink a couple old styles. But I've learned to kind of evolve out of that, but it comes back every once in a while.
I can tell because people down here say Chicago.
I was just going
and
to say.
up there it's Chicago.
It's Chicago.
That's how you know it's Chicago.
Yep. Chicago.
Chicago.
And when you watch TV and somebody's making fun of Chicago, they say Chicago. And that's not it.
Not at all.
That's definitely not it.
Those are the people that put ketchup on hot dogs, which is...
jerks.
Yeah.
Animals.
It's a non-Chicago
Monsters.
thing. Yeah, you get run out of town if you do that.
So, okay, so you went to... Jesus, I'm terrible at this. This is so funny.
I'm enjoying it.
It's just bad.
Well, you've talked about on the podcast your California time. When did that happen?
I was trying to decide, do we just skip right ahead to college and
well, I think that's an option, but part of one of the things I was very fortunate of is I went to Maine South High School, and Maine South High School had an 8.9 watt radio station, FM radio station, and a cable TV station in the school, right? So
in the high school.
So we were doing like Wayne's World public access cable TV shows. They had a full studio, lighting, pedestal cameras, switcher, graphics, the whole thing in the 80s, and it actually goes back to the 60s.
Wow.
So when I was, I think, a sophomore, I learned that I had an opportunity to be part of this, and I was like, man, if I can do that, I don't need to learn anything else, right?
Yeah, because we're good, right?
Yeah, right, we're done. I know how to do this.
Who needs math?
And then B, it was like, it'd be great to get paid to just screw around and, on the radio or on television.
Give your opinion.
Right. Or, ask people their others or whatever, play music, so I had a Thursday afternoon into evening radio show, and it's funny, now that you bring this up, somebody made a nickname, and they called me the Oeste with the most from coast to coast, right?
The Oeste with the most?
From coast to coast.
Oh, man, that's great.
That's going on a T-shirt.
For sure.
There was actually a broadcasting instructor who ran the class, and it was cool. It was about writing and, theatrics and whatnot, in addition to the mechanics of working a control board and microphone and stuff. And he wrote in my senior yearbook, he said, good luck. Time will tell if the Oeste truly has the most to go from coast to coast.
Nice.
And
sure enough,
he did. Yeah, knowing the story now.
Because he didn't know that anybody could start a podcast.
Right? Literally anyone.
Even us.
Yeah, right on.
Well, that's really cool. Okay, so now let's get into college.
So the goal was obviously, hopefully, to turn my life into a broadcast career of some sort.
Sure.
Chicago is a great radio town. It's the number 3 market in the country for size.
Right behind like St. Louis, or
that's it, and Belleville and Millstadt.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
And at the time, in the 80s, early 90s, radio was an insanely hot medium. And I don't know that much about St. Louis radio, but I do know there was the morning show of Steve and DC and some of those guys, right?
I remember that.
Everybody listened to it, right? It's before the internet. So radio was powerful.
That was the internet at that point.
Exactly.
I mean, that was the false information that people would hear and think that it's something. And
the
guys on Steve and DC said,
they had.
And
they're very intelligent people.
But everybody heard it.
For sure.
So the power of radio in a big market like that at that time was amazing, and the radio guys were superheroes. They were especially in the Midwest. Because the Midwest, especially here too, there's not a whole lot of Hollywood, celebrity worship. Nobody cares about, movie stars.
Right.
But if Stevie and DC walked in, you'd be like,
Yeah.
And in Chicago, there was a handful of really top-notch talent. There was one radio station in particular that had, from morning till night, had these crazy talk show hosts, and it was like morning zoo all day long. It was hilarious, and you had to listen, and everybody talked about it. And these guys got like all the front row tickets to the Bulls games when they were doing their dynasty, and every sport, every concert. They had Pearl Jam in the studio. I mean, it was just these are the guys.
So how would you not want to be involved in that?
For sure, right? So I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to school somewhere and try and meet somebody and get into that. And in Chicago on Michigan Avenue, there's a school called Columbia College, and it's a liberal arts school that does a lot of broadcast and production and theater. And Columbia, the instructors are all working professionals in Chicago.
Okay.
So I didn't do very well in high school because I just didn't. I was the classic, if he applied himself.
Oh, that's all I have to do, huh?
Yeah, right. No. So I was fortunate enough to go to school there thinking, this is my way in. And it was really cool because I remember getting on the elevator, and so I don't know, it seems like a zillion years ago, but if you remember watching like ABC TV on Saturday night, and between 8 and 9 o'clock, the guy that previews the Love Boat, coming up next on the Love Boat. Well, all the major cities had their own guy that did all those what they call them, network IDs.
Gotcha. Because they probably had different time zones and different,
correct,
probably different programming, right?
Yeah. And there was, a national guy. Ernie Anderson was the guy that did ABC nationwide. But when it comes to previewing the 10 o'clock news and what the stories are, there was a local guy. And guy's name was Al Parker in Chicago. I got on the elevator and I said, this guy, I have no idea who he is. He leans over and he goes, "What floor?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Al Parker." I've made it. Al Parker is pushing number 3 for me.
For me.
But
what you didn't realize was that was his actual job. Radio was going downhill.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, again, the money these guys were making up there was ridiculous. The morning team, they were clearing $850,000, $900,000 a year.
Really?
For sure.
For a couple hour, 3 hour, 4 hour morning show?
Back then,
it was huge. And if you had the number one show, you're, a couple million a year.
Wow.
With contracts and then all the perks and So I ended up going to school there, and they had their own radio station too. It was 100 watts, and 100 watt FM radio covers the entire city of Chicago. It's 3 million people, so it's like, wow. But then I learned you had to go to school there for like 3 years to be able to play with the cool toys, And I was like, that's kind of a bummer. And my older sister and a couple of my friends went to Illinois State University in Normal. And I would go visit them on the weekend and basically just party and have a good time.
Yeah.
But one of my visits, I walked around in the communication department and I found out that they had an FM station called WZND and they had a TV station called TV10. And I asked, what does it take to get in this? And they said, we just got to be a communication student and you could sign up and get a newscast or whatever. And I went, that's pretty cool. So the following year, I transferred to Illinois State.
Sweet.
Moved out of the house.
Yeah.
And moved in with my buddies, some of them you've met. And within 3 weeks of going to school there, I had a twice-a-week newscast on one station. I had a twice-a-week sportscast. I had a weekend overnight shift on an FM radio station that was commercial, not part of the school.
Really?
And I even...
That's awesome.
Illinois State University is one of the only, if not the only, college in the country that has 2 major universities on the same street. So Illinois Wesleyan University is a mile away. And I went down to Wesleyan and got a job on their radio station, BSing them that I went to school there.
Right. Nice.
So,
No, I'm totally a student here.
Right, yeah. So I really just tried to, dive into this. And it was great experience. Learned far more doing that than in the classroom. But pretty soon I was doing the 6 p.m. to midnight, 5 nights a week on the local oldie station, which was the number 3 in the market. And, had a pretty good following and people calling up. And it was great because I'm 20 years old. And,
nice,
I'm playing stuff from the 50s and 60s, and the listeners think I'm 50.
They see you out and about. No, that's me.
Because back then, again, this is pre-internet, so nobody could see your Facebook page. They didn't know what I looked like. They could just hear me.
Yeah.
Right.
And we would play this game where these people would call up, and the consensus was they thought I was like a 48-year-old Italian guy that was like 5'6". I'm like, no, I'm not even old enough to drink. Did
you have the golden voice at that point, or did that come later?
I still have. I've got some tape from back then.
Yeah.
And before this show started, Jared and I were talking about his recent live performance down the street at the bar, and he mentioned that you don't want to drink alcohol when you sing or perform because it dries your voice out. What I'm noticing is that if I cared more for my own vocal instrument, if you will,
right,
things could be a little different today. But I sounded pretty good back then because it wasn't worn out, and it wasn't. It was still kind of nubile. But the fun thing was the program director of that station really wanted this to be a high energy thing, because in oldies radio, you get what's called format burnout, right? You know the songs over and over again,
right?
So it's up to the DJ to kind of make it interesting.
That's the only thing different is what the DJ gives.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So I'll never forget some of the liners and the call letters and the whole thing. Oldies 96.7 WIHN playing the greatest rock and roll music of all time. We've got Martha and Vandellas and the Drifters and all these Beach Boys, all these different things coming up. And I still find myself saying that because I was buried in this music, which was pretty cool too. It exposed me to a lot of stuff. And my finals week of my junior year, I was on the air 55 hours that week, and then still doing a 15-hour class load.
Wow,
so,
jeez.
It was always, if the opportunity to work was there, I took it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people don't do. Is a lot of times today they read about it, they go, boy, I wish I could just, if I could get into that. Well, the way you get into it is to do it.
Just go do it. Get in there and start. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome. So you're in college. You're lying about which college you go to. You're working 55 hours a week. You knew at that point this is what you wanted to do, right? And so did you have an internship? Like, I get out of college, I'm going to go work here. Or were you like freaking out and not knowing what you're going to do?
Well, that's a funny story because my thought was, so at the time they would put these statistics out and they would say, if you're going to be successful in radio, you need to go work in 10 different cities for 10 years before you can basically support yourself.
Carry the 2, that's 10 times 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 100 lifetimes before you make $9.
Awesome.
And but again, top markets were a different story. So I thought, well, can I be the guy that goes from Normal, Illinois with this 100,000 listenership to Chicago? That's really all I wanted to do, was go back and take the city by storm and have a morning show and be the guy.
Do what you do there, but up in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah, back home.
The reality was I was nowhere near good enough to do that. I didn't have the experience and all the rest. But I took an internship with this guy named Lou Brutus, which was on a rock and roll station, 103.5 WWBZ, The Blaze. And they were playing harder hair glam rock. Right?
Okay.
And this was,
what year are we talking?
We're talking like 95, 96, 95.
So are we getting to into the alternative stuff at all, or
just
more
before that? Right, kind of. And in fact, alternative is what killed that station. So it was like right around that time.
So they were still going old school, like the hair stuff and
they're playing Poison.
Gotcha.
And,
Okay. Yeah. Motley Crue.
Def Leppard.
And kind of dipping into some of the alternative
Pearl
stuff.
Jam and
right.
Yeah.
So one particular day, I find that they're offering internships, right? So I sign up and I send them my resume and they say, sure, come on in. And I talk to the guy and they're like, okay, come back tomorrow and, interview. So I went downtown and it's in the 37th floor of the Hancock building downtown. The studio has this awesome view of Lake Michigan and, you've made it if you're there,
right?
Even though I'm doing this free thing, Lou Brutus made it. I didn't make it.
He's getting coffee for the guys, but you've made it.
So I show up and they're like, okay, this Lou guy says, hey, so what do you do? And I said, what do you mean? Anything you need? What do you need? He goes, no. The rest of the day, what do you do? Do you have a job?
How are you paying for this?
Right. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm good. Because the whole time my hobby was playing with old cars, right? So to support myself, I was painting cars out of my dad's garage in Park Ridge as I pursued this radio career. So I said, I'm covered. He's like, okay, well, if you can be here tomorrow, you got the job. Great. So I come back tomorrow, and the studio is a pretty good-sized studio. It's probably 20 by 20. And back in those days, most of the music was on CD and also on what they call a broadcast cartridge, which was a continuous loop tape. And you store the cartridges on the wall, and you take them off and plug them into this machine, and they play their loop, and then you unplug it and stick it back on the wall. So
what is their loop? It's just the one song?
It's one song.
Gotcha.
And then there was tones that were recorded that you couldn't hear that triggered stuff. So before 30 seconds before the song was over, this what they call it a tertiary tone would trigger a flashing light. So the DJ knows the song's about to end. So wake up and get over to the microphone or whatever.
Freebird's almost over.
Yeah, and here you go. So anyway, Lou's part of my job was to clean up all of his broadcast cartridges and put them back on the wall in the rack, and he had a playlist and all that stuff. And I would leave the main studio area and go in the kind of the side room, and then he would motion me to come in, and I would so essentially getting coffee. Well, so this Lou Brutus guy, and I think he's still out there today. he came from Boston, and his delivery, he would tell jokes every once in a while, and occasionally they're pretty funny, right?
Yeah.
So one time I find myself kind of laughing at this guy's thing, and he finishes his bit, and he shuts the mic off, and he goes, "You, come in here." And I said, "Sure, what's up?" And he goes, "When I turn that mic on, you don't look at me, you don't breathe, you don't move, you don't exist, you are nothing. So just shut up and get out of the way." And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I just kind of thought it was your job is to make people kind of laugh, right?
It's kind of like Chris says to me when I start the podcast. He's like, you don't look at me.
Whatever. Dude, the Jared podcast is next week. Calm down. Calm down.
We're going to do a live performance with him. He's going to.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
it has to be original music, right?
I'll come up
No
with
problem.
something.
yeah,
All right, good,
there you go.
good. All right.
Send your requests to the Stubborn German Podcast Facebook page. So this guy was like way abusive and crazy, and at the end of the day, I'm thinking I've already got experience doing this stuff. Do I really need this?
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, "Hey man, I appreciate the opportunity, but I got something else." And he said, "There's 1,000 people that want your position, so get out." Fine, sure, I'm gone.
Wow.
Well, little did I know that radio station was owned by a conglomerate that owned like 7 other stations in town.
So you go to get a job at all those, and they're like,
I got a letter saying,
you just ghost us?
"We're aware of your performance at WWBZ," and no. So, so it was. I'm like blacklisted, right?
Nice.
Holy cow.
You're kidding me. And it was like over. So, so at that point, what do? I didn't have the fortitude to move to 10 different cities and be WKRP and all that kind of stuff. So I was fortunate enough to be able to fall back on the other hobby, which was playing with old cars. And I've always read Hot Rod magazine, and Hot Rod had an event called the Hot Rod Power Tour, and it was a cross-country cruise where these people join up and they drive across country in their hot rods. And my buddy Paul and I still don't remember this fully, but he said on New Year's Eve of like 1995, we made a resolution that in 96 we're going to do the Power Tour.
We're doing it.
And so sure, whatever. Well,
why don't you remember that?
Yeah, I don't know.
On New Year's Eve?
Yeah, a couple of libations perhaps. I was just in the moment.
Right.
So like May 29th or something rolls around, and Paul shows up at my house, and he said, "We got to go." I said, "Where are we going?" "We're going to Los Angeles." I said, "No, we're not." And he's like, "You promised, man."
I remember that.
Yes. I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
You're like, "I don't."
Exactly. So neither one of us, he was still in engineering school at U of I, and I had graduated, and I was painting cars in the garage. So we didn't really have a hot rod to go on this trip with. But he had this rusted out 88 Chevy Cavalier.
Perfect.
And he's like,
that counts as a hot rod.
So we're packing the car. We're bringing, we've got a tent and a camp stove because we can't afford hotels. And my dad's like, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm going to Los Angeles. I'll be back, in 10 days. And he said, "Do you have any money?" And I said, "I think I got like $300. He's like, "All right."
Okay.
So
see you later.
Yeah, we had a couple like $250 credit cards and a little bit of cash.
Yeah.
So we drive out there, and from Park Ridge and Chicago area. And along the way, we get halfway out there, we realize what we're doing, and we're like, we're going to be on the road with like the highest profile, nicest cars in the world, and we're in this toilet of a vehicle. So we stopped in Colorado at a Walmart, bought a box of Sharpies, and we said maybe we just have people sign it and just make fun of it, and screw around.
Nice.
And try and stay out of the big photographs. We don't want to ruin stuff.
Can we get that Cavalier out of the shot here?
Totally.
Could you move your
We
car?
figured we would help them and just get it out before them. So anyway, we get to L.A. and the Peterson Automotive Museum is the kickoff point, which is, again, really high, well-known place out there. And as we start leaving, the magazine staff is like, they're letting, this Boyd Coddington and this yellow hot rod, you go, and this guy Ray Brizio and your hot rod, you go. You guys, they just thought we were traffic. They're like, yeah, just go over here. But then by the time we got to Vegas and we got to Colorado, and they're like, you're like with us.
No, we're with you.
Yeah, we are. And they're like, wow, a couple of young guys in your 20s that don't really have anything hit the road to be part of this. That's kind of saying something. So they put us in the pack wherever anybody parked, and
nice.
Our picture got in the magazine for crying out loud.
Gosh, really?
And we won a trophy for best beater.
Best beater.
They have that? The best beater trophy?
They invented
That's awesome.
it,
Yeah.
But along
for
the
you.
way, yeah, right. We ended up in a bar in Colorado, go figure, and chatting with a guy named Jim Savis. And Jim was the publisher of Hot Rod Magazine. And I never knew him. I didn't know. The publisher of a magazine's not, a high-profile title. You
Sure.
might know the writers or whatever. But I met him that night, and well, fast forward to a year later, I'm again just kind of bouncing around jobs, and a friend of mine got me a gig at a chemical company, writing labels and naming products, and great experience. Not what I wanted to do, but it paid the bills.
Sure.
This power tour trip comes around again, and I'm compelled to do something. I don't have vacation time. I can't go. But I picked up the phone, and I called this guy, Jim Savis. I don't even know why. I'm just going to call him. And his assistant was this Irish woman named Peggy Medina, and she'd answer the phone. This is Jim Savis's office. Hi, is Jim available? Jim's on another line. Can I take a message? Okay, well, my name's Kevin Oeste, and what do you need? I'm not sure. Could you
A job.
Yeah, right. I didn't really want to come out and say it.
Right.
But she's like, I'll let him know you called. Okay, great. So I hang up the phone. I'm like, well, that was dumb,
Yeah. Never hearing from that guy again.
Yeah, what are you thinking over here?
Didn't go the way you planned. No.
That's awesome.
But I called back. And, Peggy picks up the phone. Jim Savis's office. Hi, Jim. Or hi, Peggy, this is Kevin Oeste. Oh, yeah, I told him you called. He didn't call you back. I said, no. Yeah.
He's probably not gonna.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. I'll put you through. Right?
Okay.
Nice.
So she transferred me through. And Jim at the time was a hotshot publisher, ad executive. I mean, this guy was just slick as can be, knew everybody, had command of the biggest automotive enthusiast magazine in the world.
Right.
In L.A. He's on top of the world, right? Mr. Speakerphone, So you hear click. Yeah, this is Jim, from 20 feet away. Jim, hey, Kevin Oeste. Yeah, Kevin Oeste. Who the hell are you? Right? I said, well, you obviously you don't remember, but I met you on Power Tour last year. And he said, yeah, I meet a lot of people on Power Tour. Okay. Well, we were in a bar, and I was, what were you driving? My buddy and I had this Cavalier, and he goes, wait a minute. I remember you. You told me, you tried to sell me on putting that Cavalier in the Peterson Automotive Museum. I said, I did? But it kind of made sense.
Did I say that?
Yeah, because, he was buying drinks on the corporate expense account.
Well, yeah.
So I said, yeah, that's me. And he goes, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I work for this chemical company. He goes, yeah, no, forget that. He goes, you should come to work for us. I said, what?
No.
He's like, you could sell ads. You BS'd me into almost putting this car in the museum. You could sell advertising. You should come out here. I'm going to get you an interview in Chicago. We have a Chicago office, and then you can come out.
No way.
What? Right?
Wow.
Is this seriously how all this started?
This is how this started.
Oh, my God.
So my Chicago interview, they have this office on Chicago Avenue, and I go downtown, and I'm working at this chemical company, and I had to, today, if I would have known, like all of us, if I would have known then what I know now, I just would have walked out of the chemical company.
Right.
But I told the interviewer that I got a day job, man. Can we do this like after hours? I asked this guy to stay after hours to do a job interview. Guy's name was Glenn Booker, and he's like, sure, whatever. When do you think you can get here? I'm like, I don't know, 6:30. He's like, all right. Drive downtown, park the car, go in. He's the only guy in the building, He's like, hey, come on in. Great. He said, you're wearing a tie and a jacket. I said, yeah. He goes, well, we don't really wear that. So, okay, fine, So he says, okay, well, sit down. And he turns around, he goes over to this mini fridge, and he turns around, looks back at me, and he goes, do you want a beer? And I said,
Is this a trick?
is this right? I'm thinking, and he said, I'm going to have one, so it's cool. And I went, okay. I didn't want to turn the guy down. So he cracks open a beer, hands me one, and says, all right, well, there's the vice president of this company is named Ralph Panico, and he's in California, and he said, I'm supposed to hire you. So what's your story?
He says I'm supposed to hire you.
Right.
So why?
Exactly. So I tell him the same nonsense I just told you guys, and he said, you know what, we need people that are willing to get out and do stuff and join our events and meet people, and you got up and did it. So, how soon can you move to California?
How soon can you move to California?
2 weeks later, I'm living in SoCal.
Wow.
Dude, that's
and I'm selling
insane.
advertising. I know nothing about selling advertising, right? I've never sold an ad in my life. And the way it worked is the little tiny 1-inch ads in the back of the magazine were mine. The full page color thing from Chevrolet and Skoll.
Yeah, those were not yours.
That was not yours.
Those are the New York ad agency, the big ad guys. So I got these little tiny things. But because I was into that stuff, I knew all these little companies because I knew who they were. So I would just call them up because it's my job. And nobody wants to hear from an ad salesman.
Sure.
But these guys would answer the phone and they'd be like, hello. And I'd say, hey, Art Carr from Art Carr Transmissions. What are you working on? What do you mean? Well, you put something down to pick up the phone. What is it? Oh, well, we're developing a new torque converter for these Buick Grand Nationals. Oh, that's cool. A friend of mine's got that. Oh, you know about those? Yeah, sure. So next thing you know, we got a little bit of a connection. At the end of the conversation, it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, do you want to renew that ad? Yeah, sure. Okay, great.
Might as well.
Right. Exactly. So
that's awesome.
It was a lesson in relationship building that pretty soon I was doing pretty well. I'm renewing existing contracts and finding some new stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, at least I can pay my bills. I don't want to be an ad sales guy. But again, it was a good experience.
For sure.
Well, at the same time, about a year and a half into this gig, 20 months into the gig, Hot Rod Magazine had a TV show that was produced in Nashville that aired on TNN. Remember the Nashville network?
Yes.
TNN.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of outdoor stuff. And
That's
Hot
right.
Rod TV was on TNN.
That was a Bill Dance show, right? Going fishing with Bill Dance today.
Yeah.
And he'd go, God dang it!
Yeah.
Dadgummit!
So, that's it. You got the spirit.
Right.
So what ended up happening is the magazine was printed in Los Angeles. The TV show was in Nashville. They didn't have the same content. So they wanted to bring the show to California. I'm in the elevator with...
Bill Dance?
Not with Bill Dance, yeah.
That would have been cool.
I'm in the elevator with the new publisher of Hot Rod. They changed over every few years, a guy named Brad Gerber. And Brad says, hey, Oeste, what's going on? I said, no, I'm just doing my thing. And he said, yeah, we're bringing Hot Rod Television to L.A. to produce it. And I'm like, that's cool. He's like, yeah, we're looking to staff a few positions. I said, did you guys read my resume? Because I got a degree in that. I've done, oh, no. Oh, okay, well, you can be associate producer.
Just like right
why
there
not?
in the elevator.
Bam.
No problem.
And looking back, I know that it was a little relief for him to fill this position, done from internal, whatever, it's over. And he knew that I had worked for him. He knew I wasn't, a complete moron when it came to this stuff. And he also knew that if I couldn't cut it, I'd be gone, whatever. So I worked with an outside production company producing this TV show on Speed Channel. And it was killer. It was like, this is what I wanted to do. I was able to put my hobby and my other talents, whatever, together. And shortly thereafter, things went well, and they brought production in-house from this outside production company, and I was producer. So it was my show at this point.
Wow.
And it's going out to, 60 million households all over the country. And with a super strong brand, everybody that's into that stuff knows Hot Rod Magazine.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I get to go to the SEMA Automotive Trade Show, and I got a Hot Rod shirt on, and people are like, "You're one of the good guys already," just because you're
you
in
have
with
a Hot Rod shirt on. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it. People want to talk to you, and at that point, I learned that everybody wanted to have their car or their product on national television. So if you got a camera, man, you got friends, right?
Yeah.
You got a lot of friends.
Yeah. And it took a little while to learn that, maybe some of them were disingenuous. They were just in it for themselves.
Sure.
But at the same time, I met, everybody in this industry, manufacturers and racers and everybody in between, and developed some pretty good friendships. After doing that show for a couple of years, I found myself, I was on television, on Speed Channel, doing installs of parts and stuff. But it was starting to get to be where they wanted me to kind of endorse stuff that I wasn't really up for because they sold the spot.
Right.
So along the way...
You have to pretend like you like XYZ oil brand or whatever.
That's it. And not getting compensated for it either.
Right.
A big contract to do it.
Yeah.
It was just...
not you personally, but they are.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting paid 40 hours for 80 hours
So you stick
work.
your neck out and personally say that you love it,
Yes.
even though... that's the company,
Yes.
Are you a company man? So, yeah.
And it's a total enthusiast-based world, right? So when you go out in the world to a show somewhere in person, and people can tell that you're a straw man for this product, you lose your street cred and people give you a hard time. You know,
For sure.
I didn't want that. So along the way, while I was working out there, now all of a sudden it's my job to cover the Hot Rod Power Tour for the TV show. So I'm doing this trip every year, and that's how I met my wife, Kelly. I had a car, a 62 Ford Galaxy that I still have, and I used that as a camera car. I'm coming across country shooting the TV show, and the car breaks.
You're driving this car across country.
Yeah. From the Power Tour that year went from L.A. to Norwalk, Ohio, I think, or Nashville, Tennessee. And
that's awesome.
The car wasn't figured out, and we broke like every single night. and the big failure was at Gateway at the racetrack,
Really?
near St. Louis. And some of the guys that were on the Power Tour with us are like, "Hey, I live over here in O'Fallon. If you can get the car over there, I'll help you fix it." And I got another guy who says, "I got a dealership in Southern Indiana that's on the way to our next shop. You can get it there. I've got a full dealership. We can fix whatever you need."
Wow.
So I'm flipping a coin. It's like, do I go to Indy or do I go to this guy's house?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we had a flatbed with us, tow truck, and the flatbed guy says, "I'm not going to Indy, so I'm going to take you to this guy's house."
How's this guy's house out?
That's where I met my wife.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the Power Tour changed my life like many times.
I guess so.
And Kelly and I start communicating, and back in those days, it was when you used to email jokes around. You remember being on an email?
That was a thing. I
the
do
big
remember
chain,
that.
Yeah.
So
we still get some from my wife's grandpa.
yeah, there you go. So we find ourselves on the same email chain.
Yep.
And next thing you know, I come to Waterloo for the first time and meet her family and everything. She moved in with me in Southern California and lived out there for 4 years. She was working for Brian Cave, the law firm in St. Louis,
Okay.
as a legal assistant. And they had a Santa Monica office, so she was able to transfer and do well. She was doing killer as a legal assistant in Southern Cal. And I got to the point, though, where because of this endorsement thing, I said, I think we can do this on our own. I think we can do our own production company, our own show. I know the advertisers. I've done ad sales.
You've literally done all of this.
All the piece parts now have just kind of come together.
Yeah.
So she's like, hey, if we do this back in Southern Illinois, we may be able to use one of my dad's farm buildings in Waterloo as a location.
For the shop.
For the shop. For the shop.
Yeah.
So we did it, and we started a production company called V8 TV Productions, which I thought was a pretty cool name. It describes what we do, and we started a television show called V8 TV. Mm-hmm. And I had a network connection with another guy who said, if ever you leave Hot Rod and produce a show, we'll air it.
Really?
Yeah, you just got to produce it, we'll air it. So it was a network called Men's Outdoors and Recreation. They were on Dish and Direct and on cable systems. Next thing you know, we got a 4-year contract, and we're airing all over the country with our own show. And it was shot here in Waterloo.
That's so cool.
The content was we were doing one car at a time, restoring it, showing people how to do it. And Kelly's brother is a brilliant collision technician, body man, so he did the heavy lifting, and Kelly and I both wrenched on it, and we had her whole family involved. Her mom was out there sorting bolts, and her dad's wrenched on it. He's an old farmer and mechanic. And the car we built was for Royal Purple Synthetic Oil. It was a contract job for this oil company that wanted a publicity vehicle, so everything was working out great. Next thing you know, people call up, and they're like, hey, I want a car. Oh, all right.
Mm-hmm. We see exactly how you put this car together, because it's been all these shows worth of this same car.
Yep.
We like what you do.
Yep.
That's so cool.
So all of a sudden, in a weird way, I'm starting to realize the power of television, even though I've been making it for years.
Right.
And so now we got 2 cars in the shop, and now we got 4, and then we got to hire somebody, and so we advance 17 years, and we have a shop in Redbud now that's got 22 people on staff. We've got 42 cars in our possession for people in 7 different countries.
Wow.
All over the world. And we were early to jump on the internet. As soon as YouTube started, I owned the rights to our show, so I could stream the whole thing right away back in, 11, 12, when YouTube started. So that got out there, and it just became a mouthpiece for the show and for the shop. And I can't say that I planned any of these steps, but along the way they've worked out, And one of the things I really like about the car industry is that it is enthusiast fueled, and today we're up to our eyeballs in inclusion and, working with different cultures and everything else. And a lot of it's like this forced thing,
Yep.
But a lot of people dig old cars, and it doesn't matter who you are, right?
So it's a genuine...
It's organic, right?
Yeah,
it's for real.
Organic,
so it doesn't matter what your culture is, your background, where you're from. Hey, that's neat, right? So two people start talking about a particular car with whatever background, all the cultural differences go away. It's
exactly.
just interesting about the car. And the next thing you know, you meet their friend, and here you go, and all those walls are gone, and everybody just, it's cool, right? So the industry's been very, very good to us, and it's been, along the way, we've launched other things, our own podcast, the V8 Radio podcast, which is, we've been doing it for 5 years now, which is hard to believe.
And not to stop you here, but your podcast, didn't it reach, was it number 1 or number 2 podcast on, what was it?
Apple iTunes.
Apple iTunes,
yeah. We were number 2 on iTunes Automotive for a while.
That's awesome.
And,
that's so cool. I listen to that podcast all the time. I love it. I mean,
just number 2? I mean,
I know, right? That's kind of what I'm like. Geez, wonder what number 1 is. Man.
Well, what's funny is again, I'm not claiming to have architected this, but we find ourselves ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff. So we find ourselves ahead of the curve on video production and on podcasting, and we're doing it before anybody knew how to do this stuff. So now the market gets flooded, and everybody's doing one, including us right now.
Yeah, here we are. Thank you.
Which is cool. So I'm always kind of looking for what's the next way to kind of cut through the noise, or utilize newer, more available technologies to create stuff and tell stories and be able to do this. And at the same time, again, with my relationships with the magazine and the TV shows I've done, I'm pretty involved with the trade organization, SEMA, which is the Specialty Equipment Market Association. And another benefit of working at Hot Rod Magazine is that nobody stays there forever, right? So all the writers end up moving on, and the salespeople move on. Well, all these people that I used to work with moved on to really cool places.
So that's like the launching pad to
for sure.
Just get your career going. Everyone knows you and sees you, and then bam, here you are working for XYZ.
Correct, right? So one of my old bosses, Brad Gerber, the guy that made me the associate producer of the TV show, he's the director of business development for the NHRA Racing Association now.
Wow.
Right? So he went way up.
Wow.
And another guy that used to have an office down the hall from me, his name is Peter McGillivray. Peter became vice president of this SEMA organization, right? So, all of these types of things. So now all of a sudden I've got connections with all these major things.
Wherever they move to, you know them from back when you were all little.
Correct. Yeah, right. I drove these guys home from the bar. And,
Little in Hot Rod Magazine,
Well, yeah. And
it's so tiny,
just so fortunate that timing worked out and all that stuff. So with the SEMA organization, my buddy Peter called one day and he's like, hey, dude, we need somebody to host this SEMA Central thing and do interviews, and I think you'd be great for it. So boom, I've done it for 5 years now and host their banquet, and I just got back from their SEMA Hall of Fame inductee banquet in Vegas.
How did that go?
It went awesome.
Yeah.
And because of the people that we brought into the Hall of Fame are just, giants in the industry.
Right.
To be able to, welcome and honor them and bring them into this highly coveted Hall of Fame position, it was very, very moving. It was a tremendous honor and a huge responsibility, and I'm very thankful that I didn't, fall on my face and
mispronounce everyone's name.
Yeah, ruin the whole thing. In fact, they actually hired me to write the whole thing this year too.
Holy cow.
Outside of like the CEO speech and some of the board members.
Everything was you, though.
Yeah,
that's
awesome. Be happy to know that you are number 1 in the Monroe County Craft Brewers podcast on Wednesday nights, I think.
Right on.
So,
we have that category
top
nailed.
spot.
Yep.
Good job.
Yeah.
All that hard work.
It for sure, it pays
But
off.
definitely, so when Chris mentioned to me that when we discussed doing a podcast, he was like, well, I definitely want to do it with my buddy Kevin. I'm like, okay, Kevin, no problem. Let's do it. And then the first time I met you, it was like, okay, I know this guy. How do I know this guy? Like, I'm pretty sure I've seen him on TV, but why would he be doing a podcast that's Southern German? It doesn't make any sense to me. But
because
I'm like,
got good beer here.
It's got to be that guy. And then I heard your voice. I'm like, it's got to be him. So, yeah. When did and I know we kind of got to wrap it up, but when did the connection between you guys? I know we've talked about that, but yeah, we can keep going. How did you hook up?
It was interesting because Chris was running his automotive repair shop at the time when I met him, and we were looking for a competent shop to do alignments on these high-end show cars that our shop builds.
So he went right past us and went...
No, it was kind of funny because it's important in that world. We have a customer we're building this car for, and the customer entrusts us to build this car, restore this car. So we have to pick subcontractors, if we need them, that we can talk to and get to know, not just drop off at some nameless, faceless mega center and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. So we'd heard that Chris and Tammy had a good shop, and, hometown, it was Ron's hometown repair. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we wanted, a hometown thing. Went over there and talked to him and told him what we wanted, and Chris was a little bit nervous at about damaging the car, which I get, but didn't screw it up at all and did a nice job.
I think I asked you to never tell me the value of any of these vehicles.
Yeah, you did. I do remember that.
I just don't want to know that.
Yeah, because I don't want to know it either at the time.
Right.
But that was kind of the beginning, and so we started using you guys for general repair and that kind of stuff. And then at some point, I'm involved with the Waterloo Optimist Club, the youth fundraising organization, which, go figure, I run the car show. But Chris had said, hey, I'm thinking about getting involved in the community a little bit. Do you know anything about the Optimist Club? And I said, well, yeah. And I knew him and could vouch for him. So I don't know if it's the right term as sponsor, but I kind of recommended or brought you into the club, and everybody unanimously voted sure. So then Chris and I had like every other Thursday to hang out together at an Optimist event, and we found ourselves kind of closing the bar down and having discussions, about him saying, hey, I'm brewing beer, and me saying, well, we're having a family party on the farm, bring some out, which turned into this.
Wow.
It did. Yep.
So he and
I brought a bunch of beer to the Memorial Day party.
Yeah, the farm party.
Right? Yeah, the farm party. And, well, I mean, I brought the best stuff I had.
And it was great. we drained it, But it's been fun that Chris and I, our businesses have both grown, not necessarily parallel universes, but they
Sure. I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because I started out, when I knew you, we were just on the farm, basically, and, just had gotten into our bigger shop, and you hadn't started this yet, and we obviously like to hang out together.
Yeah,
so
now we're both growing at the same rate. We both have podcasts now.
Exactly, right.
Sure.
I feel like you're equal. You're like totally on par with each other.
I just feel like I just got to get to Vegas in a tuxedo.
There you go.
That's probably not going to happen.
Well, so what you need to do here is, I'm sure there's a craft brewing association of some sort.
Yeah, I need to go there.
You need to
get
join
into an elevator with.
Well, the first thing though is it ain't going to happen unless you get into it, right? You're not going to get in that elevator
unless I join the.
Unless you join the thing,
okay.
And it's
I actually
all
did join. So
there you go.
I haven't said this yet, but we for the first time ever we entered some of our beers into GBAF, which is the Great American
Great American Beer Festival.
Great American Beer Festival, which would be GABF.
Yeah, not the Great Britain Alcohol Festival.
I'm like, wow, where am I going with this? That's it. Yeah. This does not sound right. But so we did that, and you have to join the Brewers Association to do that and all that. So yeah. I mean, cool. I guess we kind of did that, but just a fun little brewing note. But back to hot rods. Let's go.
Well, but I think what you'll find, and this is what I found, is that the more you can get involved, the more you're going to get out of it.
Absolutely.
And it's, I don't do anything seeking to get out of it, right? I do stuff because I think I might be able to help or
just
learn.
Because it seems like that's the right thing to do, right?
Sure.
That's why we do this stuff.
Yeah. If there's a whole convention center full of smart people that are very successful, maybe I can learn something if they let me stand next to them, And there are people who are in trade organizations and stuff that only think that, these people just take a check and, I don't get anything out of it. Well, you got to give something, right? So in your case, if you can, the Great American Beer Festival or some other, organizations,
right.
which you already do with the Brown Water Society and hosting your firm club things.
Sure.
keep doing that, and soon enough, you're going to be in Vegas in a suit. It's that simple.
I can't wait. They should start measuring me now.
Yeah. Well, I got a guy. He does it on site. You get the suit in an hour. It's wonderful.
Really?
Yeah.
Does he come to the shop in Redwood?
He probably would. He comes to my hotel and just measures me and comes back an hour later, and it's the perfect
Here's
thing.
your suit.
Totally, it's great.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Now, I think the takeaway from this is, and I say this all the time to people when we're talking about jobs and careers and whatever, is you don't be an idiot, right? Now, that's what I say.
There you go.
But
I thought that's where you're headed with this.
But it's I always say, if you have talent or ability, that will trump almost everything. Whatever degree you have or whatever job you may have worked, people notice when you are able to do what they need. And clearly, since high school, you've been that guy who's able to do broadcasting and presenting and running a shop now. Like, anybody that's listened to the show or seen you on TV or worked with you at V8 Shop in Redbud knows you have ability and you are responsible and capable. Like, that stuff stands out, right, above everything else.
Yeah. What I love about Kevin is he's not just a one-trick pony. I mean, he is an expert in not one but two fields.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to do the car stuff the way that he does, and the stuff that his shop puts out,
right.
and I see it on Facebook all the time. Here's the next one that rolled out the door. It's like, holy crap, that is amazing. And one of these days, I'm going to have him just build something because I can't wait. But man, and then and to do the radio, the TV end of it, the video, the hosting,
right.
the face of it all.
Like, can you imagine being that good at two different things?
I
Like,
know.
you obviously, there's plenty of guys that can do broadcasting.
Being an auto mechanic, so I had to be a brewer.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Plenty of guys can host shows, but they know nothing about cars. And plenty of guys can restore cars, but they would never be able to present and host a show.
Well, you guys are way too kind.
And then there's Kevin Oeste.
I don't know. That's why we have the Kevin episode.
Hey, well, I genuinely appreciate that. And to me, it's just, I'm lucky enough to do what I do. And I get to do it all the time. I'm not a weekend hobbyist. This is my 24/7. So, and again, the effort comes into getting out there. I just got back from Bonneville from the Salt Flats for the land speed records, racing, and it's a tremendous experience.
I heard there was a fast car there.
A couple, yeah, for sure. Pushing 500 miles an hour, piston driven. And the fun thing is, again, because of my background and choices that I made that I didn't really know what the result was. It was my wife Kelly's birthday, and we brought a cake. I had a cake made in Wendover, Utah at this local grocery store, and we were able to bring it into the pits of the world's fastest streamliner, and the whole crew sang her happy birthday.
No way.
That's awesome.
Because we know these guys,
That's so cool.
So you're right, the concept of if you can do what you like to do it. But I will tell you, how many people do we know that are very successful and aren't really good at stuff, too?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
To me, it's the perseverance is important. And people all the time, how do you get into this? How did you start? You just got to show up. Show up and bring it. And if you're passionate about it, you'll get there.
Give all the effort that you have, and just, go for it. Like, own it.
For sure. Yeah. And in no way do you don't expect anything to come back.
Yeah.
You have to be of a mindset of, I'm going to give this regardless.
Exactly.
And before you know it, all of a sudden you wake up and go, oh, my God, look what happened.
Keep doing what you think is the right thing to do, the good thing, to help whatever you're trying to push along. And whatever comes back. And great.
Yeah. And you're a total testament to that. You love to do what you do, and
I think that's why we get
shows.
along so well, because I think you do the same thing. So.
Well, hey, again, you guys are both very, very kind for letting me spew my nonsense for this episode.
Well, speaking of nonsense,
it's interesting, and I think people definitely want to hear about it. But yeah, what do we got here?
All right,
word of the day,
the word of the day is Gemütlichkeit, right? And I got your entries here because I typed them out.
Of course you did.
So Jared said energetic.
Energetic, yeah.
And
is that what I said?
Pretty good.
It's a pretty good. There's energy involved in it, so it's kind of
sure.
on the way there. Chris said a feeling of warmth and friendship, which that's pretty much right on as well, and you know this already.
Dang it.
There is a German song called Ein Prosit, and it's Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit, and it basically means
a toast.
A toast
to the There's no English translation to Gemütlichkeit.
Gemütlichkeit does not translate
It
easily.
literally means like a feeling of warmth and friendship. Right?
It's like a great time. Let's have a great time
Yes.
among friends and happy and just going for it. So,
Yes.
Which is what we do every time we record.
Every single
a
time.
podcast.
how about that? Huh? How about
I think we
that?
might have a little Gemütlichkeit right after this.
Well done.
Having
Kevin.
some right now. So there you go, man. And if you're the one calling the shots, you gotta bring us out of this one.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Right.
But
Okay.
again, guys, really thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, so for Jesus Christ, how
Wow.
do you do this?
Always do you last. Oh, start with him.
Thank you.
Pro tip.
This is how
That's
it's
the
done.
pro tip right there. For Mr. Jared Chasson, Mr. Kevin Oeste, I am Chris Ron, and
Prost.
Nice.
be
All right.
awesome.
He's prepared.
I love it.
Well, I went in the bathroom for a minute and prepared.
That's what we know about Kevin.
Good
He
to
comes
go.
prepared.
Yeah.
We're recording.
All right.
Oh, so I just start now, right? Is this how you do this? You
This
clear
is
your throat
how-
first?
this is how you do it. Yeah, but I,
La 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 la. me.
That's the stuff I edit out.
we hope.
Not this time.
Maybe we'll wait.
I'd say go for it.
Okay.
We have rowdy hecklers.